Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? Today, me and Kyle are going to be putting on the Marzocchi bombers on Kyle's Surron. Right now he has the stock Surron forks on there, but we are going to be upgrading them and showing you the entire process. So first things first, we're just going to take off the bars. Obviously they need to come off. And it's a size 5 Allen key. We just got the bars off. Now we're going to use an Allen key to get this little clip off right here that holds the brake line. And then we're going to take off the brake from the bracket here. So this Allen key right here is a 2.5. So with the brake caliper, you have to take off the actual caliper from the bracket, which are these two bolts right here with a 5. And then after that, we're gonna go ahead and take the actual bracket off right here. All 4 of those bolts are 5. We also propped up a bucket right here. That way, when we take the forks off, the bike doesn't wanna flip off the stand. So make sure you jam something underneath there. Could be boxes, bucket, whatever you got laying around, just to make sure that the bike doesn't flip up when you take the forks off. So we just got the brake caliper off and that bracket off. Now we're gonna go ahead and take the forks off. We're gonna leave the front wheel on. If you want, you can take the front wheel off before the forks, but we're just gonna take the forks off with the wheel and take the wheel off after. That way we're not dealing with the forks hitting the ground or anything. To take the forks off, you just gotta pop this little cap right here, and you got a Allen key right there.
Number 5.
Number 5 again. And you also got to take these 2 off, which are also a 5. So those 3, and the forks will actually slide right out. On top of these 2 bolts and this one that we already took out, you also have one right here, which is also a 5. So those 3 bolts right there, and then this one right here, and these forks will be ready to come off. We went ahead and took the spacer off that was right here. And there's also this little ring right here and some more important shit in there. So we're just gonna go ahead and leave that on and slip the forks out from right there. Like this.
Boom.
So the next step in the process, obviously we got to take the wheel off too. But we got to get this bearing off right here, which uses a special tool that we will show you momentarily. All this grease here is because when Kyle originally swapped out these forks, we loaded this thing up with grease. Very, very important. You want to lube that up like crazy before you put it back on. You don't want any water getting in there. It'll rust out and your steering will be horrible. So make sure when you take that off, grease it up like crazy before you put it back on, and we're gonna get to taking that off right now to slip it on the new one. The next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and take out the axle for the wheel. It's just 2 number 8s on each side. Super easy. You just unscrew it and push the axle through. Very self-explanatory, and if you got your bike shipped to you, then you know from putting it on. So if you didn't know and you didn't put the tire together yourself, when you go to take the axle out, there's actually threads right here that the axle threads into. So after you get one of the sides out, the other side actually has a release where you can unscrew it from here, and then it makes it super easy to pull out. And this is another thing as well. When you put this back in, make sure you grease it very well, because you want grease on it, you don't want any water in there, and it makes it nice and easy if you ever have to take it out again. This side actually also has words on it that says axle release with an arrow, so super self-explanatory, but just in case you missed that part, there you go. Next step is to take off this bearing right here, like I previously said, and you're gonna need this tool so that way you don't damage the bearing. Pretty sure Kyle got it off of Jensen USA.
I think so, yeah.
But we will definitely put a link in the description down below for this tool. This is very, very necessary. Basically it just slides right down the pole here, and you loosen it put it right at that seam right there underneath the bearing, and then you tighten it up, and that way you can kind of just hit it up or pull it up, whatever you need. Just make sure not to over tighten it so you're not actually clamping on the bar. If you're clamping on that, then it's going to make it super hard for it to move. So just tighten it enough so it doesn't slip off, and you should be good. Kyle just put this on. As you can see, it's just a little bit underneath the bearing there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to flip the forks upside down like that, and both of us are going to evenly hit on each side. It really helps to have a buddy for this. We're just going to use channel locks on both sides and just super lightly tap it at the same rhythm. We're going to go ahead and do that, and then on to the next step. Comparison and the difference of the size. As you can see, the bombers have a little bit bigger of a tube. Not crazy, but definitely a bit beefier. These look a lot more supportive. The crossbar here is a lot fatter, and these look sweet. So before we put the bearing on, we actually have to cut this down. As you can see, this is a little bit longer than the stock Surron ones. So the next step, you want to go ahead and take off this little washer right here and make sure that you put that on the new forks. So we're gonna have to go ahead and take this off, put that washer down here, and then cut this, and we'll be ready to go. So we decided to use a tubing cutter to cut this instead of a Sawzall.
It's missing the handle.
Yeah, missing the handle, but that's all right. So we're just gonna go around here and take this extra piece off that we don't need. Okay, you got that shit? Yeah, listen to that cut, bro.
Red file.
We just went ahead and put that spacer on that I had talked about previously. Kyle threw some grease on it, just a nice thin layer. That way, again, that's waterproof as well. Now you're gonna get a nice thick layer of grease on the bearing. Definitely don't be shy when you're doing this. You want a nice thick layer on there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, inside,
Getting messy
outside.
with it.
Yep, gotta. He doesn't wear gloves because he's a savage, but I recommend wearing some gloves. We're gonna be washing his hands for 25 minutes after this.
Alright, think that's enough? Slap a little more on.
Yeah, once you think it's enough, put some more. Don't be shy. After that, simply just slide it down. There's a little gap right there, so you want to set that down so it's sitting flush on top of that little. Kyle had the genius idea of taking 1.5 inch PVC, sliding it over this, and now you can evenly put the pressure down if you just tap it lightly. If you go to put the new forks on, there's actually this little tab right here that the new forks will hit when you go to turn the wheel. So before you put the forks on, you have to shave down this just a bit. You can use a file or anything, whatever you want to use, and get that sanded down so we can get full turning radius. So you want to file down or sand down, however you do it, from like this halfway point right here on the edge to the corner where we already got it. We're gonna go ahead and slide it in. Remember, if you guys took those pieces off, to put them back in order. We didn't take them off for a reason. And put the spacer there, that way you can clear this. Put the top on, and then just tighten those two bolts and the one on the back there that we loosened originally. So next up, we need to put this little star nut right here inside of the tube. That way you can screw down the cap that goes over this. So Kyle got a little tool. We also believe it was off Jensen USA, but we'll also put a link down in the description for this tool. It's pretty simple. So we're going to take the star nut and put it on the tool just like that. And then Kyle's going to take the bigger piece, put it around, drop the star nut down in there, and then you can just hammer that down.
I think we should put the wheel on first.
Okay. Just like that. That tool's sick.
Right?
So how hard would you say you had to hit that? Just like...
Not very hard.
Not very hard?
Yeah.
Word. So we have finished putting the new forks on. They look awesome. It wasn't too bad at all, honestly. Took our time doing it, and it wasn't too bad. Yup. Just gotta zip tie the plate, and my god. With the red on the forks too, bro. Yeah, that's nasty.
Probably just gonna wipe this down real quick too.
Yeah.
While it's off.
Right here is all the tools that you're gonna need. We have 2 channel locks. Those definitely came in handy. Right here we have the bearing puller for taking the bearing off the stock, and the 2 14mm wrenches to tighten it down and loosen it. We had the star nut tool, which was very important when you want to put the star nut back in the tube. The next tool was the pipe cutter for cutting the tube down to size. And then we had a 2.5 Allen key, a 5 Allen key, and we used 2 8 Allen keys as well. We also had a file for filing down that little piece so the forks could turn all the way. Obviously you want your grease for all your bolts and the bearings and basically everything. And then a hammer to use the star nut tool. Those are all the tools that you're gonna need to pull this off. I'm sure you can pull it off with a little bit less tools, but if you have this setup right here or something close to this setup, you're gonna have a pretty easy time doing this install. Without this tool, the bearing puller, and without the star nut driver, I guess you could say, those are probably the 2 most important tools, I would say. That makes the job way easier, and that way you don't damage the bearing, and when you're putting the star nut in, it's nice and straight, so you don't have a problem screwing in your bolt. With all these tools, what you doing taking my tools, bro? With all these tools, like I said, it wasn't too bad of a process, and hopefully you guys learned from this. If you have any questions, make sure to put them down in the comments below. Until next time. Peace!
Yeah, I hope you're ready for the comeback. Steve Nash, I'm about to bring the sun back. Forecast looking bright.